The sun rose over Lisbon with a golden hue that warmed the city's red rooftops and white walls. It was a crisp, quiet morning in early spring, the kind that brings a sense of calm before something irreversible. But inside the luxury suite at the Four Seasons Ritz Hotel, a chilling silence had replaced the usual rustle of morning activity. Cristiano Ronaldo's bed was untouched. The sheets were pulled back, cold. His luggage remained packed near the entrance. His phone, fully charged, sat quietly on the nightstand. There was no note, no sign of forced entry, and no one had seen him leave. Security footage showed nothing after 11:48 p.m. when he was last captured entering the elevator after dinner with his agent. Since then, nothing. It didn't take long for panic to spread. His manager panicked, the team shocked, police were called, his family was notified. Rumors spread like wildfire: kidnapping, escape, breakdown. Reporters gathered outside the hotel within hours, but amid the chaos, there was one person who stayed silent: Lionel Messi, because he knew what the letter meant. It had arrived in the simplest, most unassuming way imaginable, slid under his hotel room door as if part of some ancient secret ritual. There was no postal stamp, no elaborate envelope seal, no return address. Just a stark white piece of paper, neatly folded into perfect quarters, its edges crisp and uncreased. Messi was in Lisbon for the UEFA Legends Gala, an event designed to celebrate the enduring titans of European football. He and Ronaldo, the two undisputed giants of their era, had, surprisingly, agreed to present a prestigious award together. It was to be a symbolic gesture, a public display of mutual respect, designed to honor their shared, monumental impact on the beautiful game. They were scheduled to meet on stage the following evening, their presence a beacon for millions. But that morning, before the world awoke to the news of Ronaldo's disappearance, Messi found the letter. Its stark simplicity was almost unsettling. He unfolded it slowly, a prickle of curiosity turning into a shiver of premonition as his eyes scanned the handwritten words. The unmistakable slant and spacing of Ronaldo's pen, a script as recognizable to him as his own. Leo, if you're reading this, it means I've done something I've thought about for years. Messi sat down slowly, the elegant armchair feeling suddenly too soft, too luxurious for the gravity of the moment. He had received countless letters throughout his life, effusive fan mail from adoring. I've reached the edge, and for once, I'm choosing what's beyond. Not because I've lost anything, but because I found something, and I need to disappear before the world poisons it. He reread the lines, his brow furrowed in concentration. It didn't sound like a suicide note. There was no despair clinging to the words, no agonizing finality. Instead, it resonated with something else entirely. A decision, a deliberate departure, a profound cleansing. It felt like a deliberate act of self-preservation, a desperate yearning for a rebirth, away from the relentless scrutiny that had defined their lives. The sprawling, intrusive gaze of the global media never captured it. The moments of vulnerability, the quiet fatigue that etched lines around his rival's eyes. But those few trusted individuals, truly close to Cristiano, knew he was tired. Not physically, though the demands of professional football were immense. Not even emotionally, though the constant pressure to perform weighed heavily. But spiritually, he was utterly exhausted by the crushing weight of expectation. The relentless, suffocating demand to be perfect always. Every smile had to radiate genuine joy. Every public statement meticulously measured and delivered with flawless conviction. Every movement, every gesture, every fleeting expression was captured, dissected, analyzed, and ultimately commodified into merchandise, headlines, and narratives. He had confided in Messi once, years ago, during a rare, unguarded chat after a particularly grueling award ceremony. The glittering trophies, the flashing cameras, the adoring crowds, all of it had faded into background noise as Ronaldo had leaned in, his voice low, almost a whisper, despite the surrounding buzz. "We're not people anymore, Leo, we're projections." Messi had chuckled nervously then, a reflex born of discomfort, unsure how to respond to such a raw sentiment. He had always instinctively accepted fame as an inherent part of the deal, the inevitable cost of living out a childhood dream on the world's biggest stage. It was simply the air they breathed. But Ronaldo? He seemed to wage a perpetual, silent war with it. He curated himself with an almost obsessive precision, his grooming, his on-field performance, even the very mythology surrounding his name. Every aspect of his public persona was meticulously sculpted, a fortress built against the onslaught of expectation. And now, it seemed he wanted out, desperately. To dismantle the fortress brick by brick and simply, finally, be free. Messi continued reading, his eyes tracing the familiar script, each word now carrying an immense, almost sacred weight. There's a village in the Azores, a place where the cameras don't reach, where tourists are just a rumor, just ocean and silence. I visited it once when I was 12. A different life, a different time. I've kept the coordinates in my head all this time, a secret map to a hidden sanctuary, and now I'm going back. Not as Cristiano Ronaldo, the global phenomenon, not even as CR7, the brand, just as a man, a nameless, faceless man in a quiet corner of the world. Messi's hands, usually steady and precise, trembled slightly as he held the letter. The revelation hit him with the force of a physical blow. Ronaldo, the man who had always lived so grandly, so publicly, had harbored this quiet, humble dream for decades. A simple village, a forgotten island, a return to an uncomplicated existence. This world gave me everything. The fame, the fortune, the adoration, and in return, it cost me myself. It stripped away my essence, leaving behind only the polished shell. And you were the only one who ever truly saw me. Not the brand, not the legacy, not the manufactured rival, just me. A fellow player, a competitor, a human being. That's why I'm telling you, and only you, because you'll understand. You always have. Messi folded the letter gently, deliberately. He rose and walked to his... The city, usually a vibrant tapestry of sounds and movement, seemed to hold its breath. For the first time in years, a profound clarity settled over him. He understood, with a painful, undeniable certainty, why his greatest rival, the man whose shadow had so often loomed over his own career, had always seemed more restless than victorious. The glittering trophies, the countless accolades, the deafening cheers, none of it had been enough to quell the quiet ache of a soul yearning for peace. This wasn't a disappearance, a tragic ending, or a desperate cry for help. It was an escape, a meticulously planned, deeply personal liberation. And Messi was now the sole guardian of its secret. By mid-afternoon, the tranquil ambience of the Four Seasons Ritz had been shattered by the arrival of the Portuguese police. Detectives, stern-faced and methodical, swarmed Cristiano Ronaldo's suite, their movements precise and searching. They found no signs of struggle, no overturned furniture, no broken objects to suggest a violent abduction. His passports were still in his drawer, his credit cards neatly stacked in his wallet. There were no financial transactions, no phone calls made, no messages sent. The extensive CCTV footage, meticulously reviewed and re-reviewed, remained frustratingly inconclusive, showing only his entry into the elevator and then nothing. Ronaldo had vanished without a trace. No flight record, no hotel checkout, no GPS signal from his various devices. It was as if he had simply dematerialized into thin air. The speculation, initially a murmur, exploded into a deafening roar. News channels interrupted regular programming. Social media platforms were inundated with hashtags and conspiracy theories. Pundits debated feverishly on live television. Did he fake his own disappearance? A bizarre publicity stunt? Is this some elaborate, misguided ploy for a new documentary series, a reality show twist? Was he abducted by a shadowy organization, or perhaps a deranged fan? The questions echoed endlessly, fueled by the vacuum of information. But through it all, Lionel Messi remained a stone sentinel of silence. He fulfilled his professional obligations, albeit with a quiet intensity. He flew back to Barcelona as scheduled, maintaining his stoic demeanor. He gave no interviews, his publicist expertly deflecting all inquiries. He posted nothing on social media, maintaining an unprecedented digital blackout. Behind the closed doors of his home, however, he reread the letter dozens of times, the crisp paper crinkling slightly with each unfolding. He searched for a hint, a subtle clue, an encrypted message hidden within the words, anything that might illuminate his next move. And then a memory surfaced, triggered by a seemingly innocuous phrase in the letter. A conversation from 10 years earlier, after another award ceremony, when they had found themselves alone for a rare moment, the usual entourages having dispersed.
Ronaldo, uncharacteristically pensive, had looked him in the eye and said, almost as an aside, a throwaway comment he probably didn't expect Messi to remember, "If I ever vanish, promise me you won't look for me." Messi had laughed then, a light dismissive sound, treating it as a morbid joke, an absurd notion for a man so intensely in the public eye. But now, the words resonated with a chilling, profound seriousness. It wasn't a joke, it was a plea, a premonition, a request for understanding and respect for a decision only he could make. The promise, once a fleeting jest, now felt like a sacred vow. A week later, the frantic energy surrounding Ronaldo's disappearance had slightly abated, replaced by a dull, persistent ache of unanswered questions. It was then that Messi made his move. No fanfare, no publicist, no elaborate travel plans shared with his team or family, just him, a simple backpack containing essentials, and an old folded map he'd unearthed from a forgotten drawer in his study, a tourist map of the Azores, creased and faded from years of disuse, a relic from some long-ago family vacation. He flew to São Miguel, the largest island in the Azorean archipelago, under an assumed name, wearing a nondescript hat pulled low over his eyes. At the small, unassuming airport, he rented a humble car, choosing an older model that blended seamlessly with the local vehicles. He drove west, following the winding coastal roads, the scent of salt and damp earth filling the air. The paved roads eventually gave way to rough gravel, then to little more than overgrown tracks. He parked the car in a small, deserted clearing, took out his backpack, and began to walk. For hours he trekked, following the rugged coastline, the only sounds the rhythmic roar of the Atlantic Ocean beside him, like an old ancient god breathing, and the crunch of his boots on the pebbled path. The landscape was breathtakingly wild. Sheer cliffs plunged into the churning sea. Dense pine forests clung to the hillsides, and bursts of vibrant hydrangeas dotted the verdant slopes. It was a world away from the manicured pitches and deafening stadiums he knew. And then, nestled almost imperceptibly between towering cliffs and a cluster of ancient pine trees, he saw it, a stone cottage. Simple, unassuming, built into the landscape as if it had always been there. There was no visible path leading directly to it, no paved driveway, nothing to indicate easy access. Smoke curled lazily from its rough-hewn chimney, a domestic whisper against the vastness of the sea. A dog, small and scruffy, barked softly, its sound carrying on the wind, a gentle greeting. Messi's heart pounded, a drumbeat against his ribs. He knew, with an absolute certainty, that he had found it. He didn't approach, he didn't knock on the weathered wooden door, he didn't call out a name. To do so would be to shatter the fragile peace, to break the sacred trust. But from the distance, partially obscured by the trees, he saw a figure, shirtless, Muscles defined by years of relentless training, the man was rhythmically chopping wood, the axe rising and falling with powerful, fluid motions. A small boy, no older than 6, played nearby, giggling as he chased after the small, scruffy dog. The man paused, wiped his brow with the back of his hand, and then, as if sensing a presence, turned slightly. The jawline, the proud set of the shoulders, the unmistakable athleticism. Even from this distance, through the dappled sunlight, there was no mistaking him. Ronaldo. Alive. Happy. Free. Messi smiled faintly, a quiet, knowing smile that reached his eyes. He stood there for a long moment, simply observing, letting the image burn itself into his memory. Then he turned, his mission accomplished, and walked away, back towards the gravel road, towards the world he had temporarily left behind. That was all he needed. Not a reunion, not a conversation, not even a single word. Just the undeniable proof that his friend had found his elusive peace.
Months bled into a year. Cristiano Ronaldo's disappearance remained the most baffling, enduring, unsolved mystery in the annals of celebrity history. Books were hastily written, their pages filled with sensational theories and unproven claims. Podcasts dedicated entire seasons to speculating on his fate, their hosts presenting increasingly outlandish scenarios. New segments replayed the last known footage of him entering the elevator, as if scrutinizing it for a hidden clue. Theories emerged, each wilder than the last. He joined a monastic order in the Himalayas, fled to a private, uncharted island in the South Pacific, or had tragically, secretly, passed away. The void he left in the football world and in popular culture was immense and unfillable. Through it all, Lionel Messi remained an impenetrable wall of silence. He never commented publicly, never offered a hint of what he knew. When pressed by persistent reporters, he would simply offer a polite, non-committal shrug or a slight shake of his head. His publicists became masters of deflection, expertly steering conversations away from the topic. But something in his game and in his life shifted, imperceptibly at first, then more noticeably. He smiled more frequently on the pitch, a genuine, unburdened smile that reached his eyes. He spoke more openly in interviews, his words less guarded, more reflective, even profound. He seemed to shed the immense weight of expectation that had always burdened him, the pressure to always be the best, to always win. He took fewer sponsorship deals, carefully selecting endorsements that aligned with his personal values rather than simply maximizing profit. Quietly, without seeking any publicity, he began donating significant sums to a small, specialized children's hospital in Portugal. A gesture entirely out of character for the notoriously private star. People noticed. Fans and pundits alike observed the subtle yet profound transformation. Is Messi becoming more like Ronaldo? Some wondered aloud on sports talk shows, referencing the Portuguese star's well-documented philanthropy and often more expressive public persona. He seems more free. But the truth was far more nuanced, far more personal. Messi hadn't become more like Ronaldo. Instead, he had received something no one else had been privy to: Ronaldo's truth. The raw, vulnerable truth of a man desperate for freedom, for a life unburdened by the crushing demands of fame. And Messi, with a quiet strength and unwavering loyalty, chose to protect it. He became the keeper of a sacred secret, a silent testament to a friendship forged not in public adulation, but in shared solitude and mutual understanding. He understood that true respect sometimes meant letting go, even of the world's greatest rival. 1 year later, almost to the day of the first, on a quiet morning at Messi's serene home in Rosario, Argentina, a white envelope arrived. It lay on his doorstep, delivered with the same silent anonymity as its predecessor. No stamp, no address, just a stark white rectangle against the polished wood. Inside, the familiar, unmistakable script: "Still chopping wood. The air here is clean, the silence loud. My son, he's getting bigger. He wants to be a fisherman, just like the old men down by the harbor. I couldn't be prouder. He knows nothing of the other life, and that's a gift. Thank you for keeping my secret, for understanding, for the quiet respect. It means more than any trophy ever could."
One day, Leo, maybe we'll play again. Just us, barefoot on a beach, a worn leather ball, no cameras, no crowds, no expectations. Just the game, the way it was meant to be. Until then, see. Messi smiled. A genuine, profound smile that creased the corners of his eyes. It was a smile of peace, of understanding, of a quiet joy that transcended the realm of public accolades. He folded the letter gently, deliberately, its edges now slightly softened from repeated handling. He walked to his study, opened a drawer in his large, elegant desk, and placed it carefully beside the first, a silent testament to a bond few would ever comprehend. He closed the drawer, the click, a soft, final sound. The greatest rivalry in the history of football had ended, not with a climactic match or a tearful farewell, but with a silent disappearance and a shared understanding. What remained was friendship, a deep, abiding connection forged in the crucible of shared experience and a profound, mutual respect that surpassed all competition.